Hello and welcome to Esri's Fire and Emergency Services webinar series. Mike Cox, and today we'll be talking about the National Mutual Aid System as being developed by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. These webinars are part of our effort to promote the use of GIS by public safety agencies, and we certainly welcome your attendance and spending some time with us today. A few housekeeping items. Use the chat window to ask any questions, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. And the recording will be posted online at our Esri Public Safety webinar page, and we'll email links after the webinar is completed. So again, I'm Mike Cox. I'm the Fire and EMS Industry Manager with Esri, and today I'm happy to say one of my good friends, Jeff Dulin, Assistant Director of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, is joining us to discuss the new National Mutual Aid System, the expansion of the Mutual Aid Net current system. And the agenda overall is just to talk about WebGIS, some overview of hurricane responses to Florida and Texas and the technologies leveraged there to increase the efficiencies of those responses. And then, of course, get into the National Mutual Aid System. So, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you for a self-introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Mike, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. Jeff Dulin, retired after 33 years, Charlotte Fire Department as the Deputy Chief. My position there in the last 14 years was the Emergency Management Director and also Homeland Security Director. I entered into the GIS world back in 2003 when we built a common operating picture on an Esri Flex viewer and used it to manage several large events, including the 2012 Democratic National Convention. So thanks for having me today, Mike, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. And again, I'm Mike Cox, and I'm your Fire and EMS Industry Manager for Esri. So my mission is to promote the use of GIS in Fire and EMS agencies. Recently retired from the Henrico County Division of Fire. It's a metro-sized department in Central Virginia. After serving for 27 years, I was the Chief Operations for a few years and actually retired as the Chief of Community Risk Reduction. So had some excellent exposure to using GIS, both on the planning side and in the field. And our probably most visible success was during special events and in coordination with our incident management team deployments. But we have a NASCAR facility there, and we're able to use GIS technologies to coordinate the response of well over 30 agencies and able to track resources on a map and increase responder safety and accountability. So very successful with the technology. So I always like to discuss, regardless of the actual subject matter of the webinar, the WebGIS concept. And the reason that you'll see an expansion, or you're seeing the expansion of the use of GIS in public safety agencies, is because it's getting easier and easier to use. You're seeing the technologies employed by boots on the ground on a regular basis. You've got firefighters, EMS responders, and stations making maps daily to improve their responses. And we know the challenges, for public safety agencies are complex and they evolve every day. And there are more demands on every agency. I mean, we have aging populations, increasing severity of natural disasters, and the role of public safety is changing every day. So the health of the community, and I'm actually quoting Chief Dulin here, the health of a community depends on the effective operation of its public safety agencies, and we can improve that efficiency or improve those operations through the use of this technology. Again, as these increase in service demands tax our resources, we can't continue to throw more people and more apparatus and just simply spend more money. We've got to find a more efficient, a better way to do things, and using this technology can help you do that. And I really do believe in that, in the use of this technology. So in addition to that, it's a better way to communicate. I mean, really what it is, it's a communications platform, and we can communicate with other agencies. It doesn't matter what radio system they're on. It doesn't matter what software they're using or anything of that nature. It's the web-based GIS you can use to provide incident intelligence to anybody you choose to, with a level of security that you choose. And provides analytical capabilities, data collection, and it's no longer necessary to rely completely on that GIS specialist. So obviously you still need that GIS professional working the back end and setting up the system, but the boots on the ground have the ability to use this technology on a daily basis to improve their responses. So again, doesn't matter what mission, it doesn't matter who you're trying to communicate with, particularly on the public information side. We recently had an evacuation map for Florida that got 40 million hits in about 48 hours. So obviously it's very powerful and an excellent way to promote and communicate with not only responding agencies, but the public. And that's the expectation, particularly from the public and your elected officials. And honestly, it's an excellent way actually to have a two-way communication. You look at the way you can mine social media and scrub that data and actually use it to make decisions. You can verify it and again have that instant intelligence to make good decisions. So with that, we're actually going to get into the National Mutual Aid Program, and Jeff's going to pick up and talk about what IFC has been working on in conjunction with Esri and Intermedics. And it's a very exciting program. It's going to impact nearly every public safety agency in the country, not only fire service, but law enforcement, public works, public utilities, health departments, those kind of issues. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Mike, and welcome everybody again to the webinar. And today we're going to be talking about the IAFCs initiatives on the GIS platform. One of our big things we're trying to do as the IAFC is to integrate GIS throughout the entire fire service. Our vision is to increase responder safety, reduce risks and loss, build stronger partnerships in the communities. Like Mike said, I love to tell people that the strength of a community and the resilience of the community is really based around the strength and resilience of its fire department. We want to educate the fire service on the use of geospatial tools and then help them with spatial analytics. Because in today's world, you can raise your hands. How many of y'all have to justify things more and more with data to get new purchases or to start new programs, things like that? GIS enables us to do some of those spatial analysis and justify what our needs are. We also want to enable collaboration, information sharing across the entire fire service, and then institutionalize GIS all the way down to the back jump seat of every fire company. Next slide. There you go. So our vision is to use WebGIS. The tools and the systems are out there right now. They're built for us to use GIS every day in the fire service. What we're missing though is leadership and how to use those, best practices, governance on what are the things we should and shouldn't be doing, and then also SOP development. This is a big one for us at the IFC, so that we're all doing things the same way. One of the problems that we've seen already is that people are utilizing GIS platforms, different GIS platforms, and they won't talk to each other. But by leveraging Esri's AGOL platform, that enables us to share that data back and forth very seamlessly when we need to, and also create this national standard on the way we do things in GIS. The IFC, we're taking the lead on this, educating and serving in these areas, and then we have great support from our Esri team to help us accomplish this mission.
And Jeff, I'll echo that and speak to the excellent job IAFC is doing, particularly in educating, at that fire executive level, that fire leadership level, because a lot of our chief officers, a lot of our decision makers don't understand, what the technology is and what it can do. They don't know how to communicate with their IT personnel, or don't know what questions to ask. And on the flip side of that, those IT folks and those GIS professionals don't necessarily know what they can offer to a public safety agency to improve the response and build efficiencies and safety into the response using the technology. And then, of course, the governance and SOP development is huge, because what we see, we had over 400 requests for our disaster response program this year. And what you'll see is an agency that doesn't address preparedness related to technology, and that's any technology for that matter, but particularly using spatial data for a significant response. So what we get is we get a request 2 or 3 days out from either a major special event or maybe an approaching hurricane or something of that nature, and we have to actually work with the agencies to spin up the capability in 2 or 3 days when it's easy to have it in place prior to the event. So that governance and then having the policies in place on use is incredibly important, and obviously improves the response of that agency that's involved.
One of the things that the IFC has done over the last year and a half is we stood up the IFC GIS portal. And this is a free GIS portal for our membership and all the fire sources use to show them the power of GIS tools, and then also show them how you can do existing data layers and develop your own data layers and then share those data layers. Because one of the things that we've seen and what the IFC's mission is to educate folks on how to, when they need to share that data, create it in a format where it can be shared very easily. And you take the situation of a mutual aid response, and you've got fire resources going into another jurisdiction, well, they're blind to the things within that jurisdiction. Well, by utilizing GIS web maps, we're able to share that information in real time very easily across different agencies. One of the things that we do, though, is we look at how do we do that. We have to plan that out. And again, having this national level data set is very important. We'll talk about that more here in just a minute. Another thing we're doing is we're linking fire chiefs to data. This is Esri's tapestry map, which gives a great understanding about your area, the population you serve, what are their needs, what are the things that they do. This helps you identify who truly is within your area that you're serving. Those data points about what TV stations they watch or where they shop or public transportation, all those things are things that fire chiefs today really need to understand when they're deciding about the level of protection and the way they provide their services in their community is who are they truly serving today, because those populations change over time, and sometimes in the fire service we become blind to those changes about who truly we are serving within our jurisdictions. The other thing that's happening is the use of field apps. This is really changing the way that the fire service is using GIS. Being able to collect real-time data in the field, transmit that back into a more larger populace, allows us to have real-time data to make decisions on. Again, this is something that the IAFC leveraged this past fall, and again, it's a new and emerging technology, and the more and more we use it, the more and more we'll find ways that this will enhance our response capability in serving that community. One of the projects that the IAFC is heavily involved with right now is the HIFLD data, Homeland Infrastructure Foundation Level Data. This was a project started back in 2008 where DHS went out and collected information on the critical infrastructure within the country. Fire stations was one of those data layers that was collected. However, it hasn't been updated since 2008. We have a member within the IAFC, Jeff Snow, who has been part of this HIFLD data project for about 2 years now, working with DHS. And so last spring, the IAFC was granted stewardship of the fire station data set for us to go and take and edit and bring it more into date. We have working on a project right now with Esri to create a data editor program. And one of the things that we've identified as we start doing this is that there has to be some kind of hierarchical relationship. And we use this in a very simple term that we put together at the IAFC, that fire department has the great-grandparent data. They're the overarching thing. Everybody falls within some administrative organization. The fire stations within that fire department are considered the grandparent. They're subservient to the fire department itself. Those resources that lie within each of those fire stations is the parent. They are subservient to the fire station. Without that fire station, you can't have resources. And then the capabilities that reside within that fire station or within that fire department are a subset of the resources that you have in the fire stations. And so this is a very important thing when you start looking at the organizational structure of data today. One thing that we always understand, or we're trying to understand and make people understand, is that you have to have a data schema that makes sense. What is that relationship from one piece of data to another so that you can connect them whenever you're doing an analysis or doing searches? The HIFLD Plus project that we're working on at the IAFC is a very important project for the nation. We are launching this probably this spring, where every fire department will be able to go in, log in to the IAFC's website, find your fire stations, and update the information about your fire department and about those fire stations to give us the most up-to-date or real-time data. And the best thing is, if something changes tomorrow, you can go in tomorrow and change that data again. So one of the things we're trying to do is get the message out about this project that's coming out. So make sure you be looking for information coming out in the next few months about updating your fire department's information.
And Jeff, we can't overstate the importance of this, because this is, one of the foundational pieces of the National Mutual Aid System and many other GIS related operations that involve the fire service. Is that correct? Would you agree?
Yeah, that's correct. But again, going back to we start looking at moving large numbers of resources around the country, understanding the capabilities of fire stations and where they are, and then also what are those things within that fire station or that fire department that might be of use. One of the things that Jeff Snow's working on is, the capabilities of that fire station to house additional resources. Do they have a staging area? Do they have a fixed water system there? All these things that nobody's really put together in a national map to show where all these capabilities lie within the country. So during large disasters, we have a good idea about where we can send resources to and house them, or where there's additional capabilities that we might not know about because we're not from that jurisdiction.
And I'll also note that HIFLD contains a large amount of infrastructure data outside of the fire service. So those of you that haven't explored it, take a look and you'll find things, like the electrical grid infrastructure, bridges in your community. And there's a lot of data there that you can pull into your GIS systems and use as part of a response or part of a analysis.
All this is part of what we at the IAFC have worked on in the community engagement initiative. Everything that the fire department does affects the community. Things that the community does affects the fire department. By sharing some of these data layers that we create and go out and have, along with data sets that other pieces within the community have, we create this whole network of data sharing. I can remember my days back in Charlotte is that we would go to our planning department and actually pull weekly information about the proposed plans. And we would lay those over on a GIS map and see where possible development may be taking place, not next week, next year, but maybe 3 to 5 years down the road. This helps us look at our strategic planning. The other piece of that is looking at how development is changing and how communities are changing. And so you start seeing that and tying all these GIS perspectives into what the fire department does, you get a much, much clearer picture about what you're doing today and what you need to be doing tomorrow. One of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to bring mutual aid into the 21st century. Geo-enabling mutual aid and logistical support is the driving factor behind what we're doing for the National Mutual Aid System. We want to make sure that we know where resources truly are, not where they're at just in paper or administratively through where the fire department is, but through the HIFLD data collection, understanding where those resources truly lie on a map.
And I don't want to steal too much of Chief Dulin's thunder, but during the recent responses to the hurricanes in Texas and Florida, Chief served a pivotal role in helping coordinate the response of multiple agencies and hundreds of responders. And it was Chief Dulin, I'm not sure how, but somebody flipped his switch and he came up with the ability to deploy those field data collection applications from Esri and then set up a data collection architecture within the IAFC's org. And Jeff, I'm sorry, I just wanted to, that was a pretty exciting impact on the way that those responders dealt with the hurricane and dealt with the wide area searches and dealt with the evacuations. But I'll let you start to tell the story, and I won't, again, I guess I just did steal your thunder, but please, Jeff, describe how the IAFC coordinated that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So it was funny. One of our SMEs for the IAFC from Florida called us and says, "Hey, we're deploying a large number of resources to Hurricane Harvey in Texas," and said, "I know y'all are working on this GIS field collection tools. We'd like to maybe use it." So I called Mike and Alcy Yelshan from Esri and said, "Listen, we got an opportunity here to test some of our theories in preparation for the development of the National Mutual Aid System. Says, do y'all want to do it?" And they were like, "Yeah." So what happened was, as the resources from Florida were driving to Texas, we trained them on how to use Survey 123, how to download it, and we the IAFC's platform, we gave them usernames. And so we had these resources from North Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida that were using the IAFC's platform and Survey 123 in the field to collect real-time data from walking trucks, boats, and even helicopters about what they were doing in and around the Houston area for rescues. And you can see the dashboard here on the left, and then the survey 123 is on the right. But it was simply just a quick down and dirty about 5 questions about what are you doing, what is the situation there, and it auto geolocated it. And then also they could take a picture from where they were and send that back. And it was really cool because 30 seconds later, it was showing up in this dashboard where people from FEMA, Texas, Florida, and the IAFC could see what was really going on in the field. You know, traditionally when we send resources out, and let's say it's a 12-hour operation period, we don't get any data back about what they've done or what the situations are until they come back in at the end of the 12-hour operations period. Well, now the people looking and making decisions were actually getting real-time data as it was happening in the field, and so they could shift resources back and forth as they needed real time, not having to wait till the end of the operations period. The use of dashboards is really becoming the big theme right now in decision making for EOCs, command centers, and this day-to-day operations. Long gone are the days where fire chiefs and operation chiefs had the time to read a bunch of data and then make a decision. Today, they want to know what is the data right now so they can make a decision right now. The use of widgets, numbers, graphs, whatever, allows you to quickly understand that data being presented, and with the map piece of it, where it's being presented at.
And quite a powerful visual here you can make a glance at and start making decisions based on, you know, resource deployment needs and where are they operating, and what with the pictures, what conditions are they operating in. And you can filter this information and present it, you know, however you deem appropriate. So you can see here, they've got individual unit workload and number of entries made by the individual rescue teams, and then method. And you can, I mean, obviously 26 responses with 8 rescues, pretty easy to pick up on. And then the map obviously provides that operational area and where they're having an impact with their actual rescues and evacuations. So, and here's kind of a close-up of that same map or same map concept. And when you know, as Jeff described, these dots, you know, would come up real time as the individual rescue teams made entry or made the entry on the survey, as long as they had connectivity. Now, understand too, these apps work with no connectivity. So if you're in an area that's been impacted and you've lost your broadband infrastructure, you can still do the collections. And then once you get back to some kind of connectivity, whether it's Wi-Fi or broadband, the data will upload and then obviously then be visualized on the map. So Jeff, can you describe how they were using this data?
Yeah, so as Mike was saying, you know, the resources were going out and they were collecting this data based on damage assessments or impacts to the community, or where they're actually doing a rescue or they're going to clear an area. Which you can see here, they were doing it from the air, from boat, from land, and it was really kind of neat to see these things starting to come in as the rescues were taking place, and the pictures that they were sending back to us was amazing. But again, that's real-time data. You'll see the picture of the third one on the right of the aerial of the tank farm, and literally nobody knew that there was a major fuel leak until we got this picture, and the folks in Texas actually saw it and said, hey, we got a fuel leak here, and they were able to send resources to it. So very powerful tool when you start thinking about visualization on the map, and then incorporating visuals from photos into the map as well.
And the feedback we got from the responders and from the IAFC personnel have already improved the way the apps are deployed and actually some of the design of the product. So when Jeff again helped manage the response in Florida, you know, there were some improvements in the workflow. They actually had, you know, an issue with the U.S. National Grid. And Jeff, is this a good place to talk about that and how y'all solved that along with Esri?
Yeah, so one of the things that we identified during Hurricane Harvey was that the Survey 123 tool was using lat long, and in the fire service and rescue, we traditionally use USNG. And so we brought this to the attention of the developers, and literally overnight, they developed a My USNG app that would run in conjunction with Survey 123 and translate that USNG data set into Survey 123. So now we were talking the same language. And again, this goes back to the governance and the standardization that we talked about, is building these tools that everybody's using the same standards when they're using it. Another thing we did was we supported the Esri's disaster response program. And during Hurricane Irma, which followed Harvey by 10 days, the state of Florida actually called and says, we want to use these tools for every one of our deployment teams in the state of Florida. And so we stood up and did the training and deployed the tools to over 50 teams and 450 personnel across the state of Florida. And it was really a unique thing to see how they took this and ran with it. Even though Irma wasn't as bad as they had anticipated, the simple fact of deploying the tool, training the folks, putting it in their hands and letting them go out and give us good feedback about how to better do this next time. This was the first time during a big national disaster that these tools have been used in this way and providing real-time data information back to the decision makers.
And I will say, because of the feedback from the responders, the U.S. National Grid issue has been addressed in both Survey 123 and Esri's collector. So an incredible improvement, obviously, that helps the response based on feedback from actual boots on the ground, from the actual folks using the tools to respond. So now we'll actually get into talking directly about National Mutual Aid System and IAFC's exciting project and expansion of their current mutual aid net system. So Jeff, jump right in.
So we've had the Mutual Aid Net program started in 2008. It was a program that the IAFC developed in conjunction with the state of Ohio. And it was a static system of resources across the country. We had 18 states that participated in Mutual Aid Net. And for the last 3 or 4 years, we've really started looking at, we need to create more geospatial data within a mutual aid system. So we started working with our partners at Esri, and then started talking to WebEOC, who are the 2 leaders in their fields. And we started saying, listen, what if we were to take data and actually put it into a map of where these resources are, and then you could tell who is the closest, most appropriate resource whenever you needed help. And so this whole idea of the National Mutual Aid System came out in the evolution. And what we're calling it is everybody's everyday mutual aid system. So we'll walk through a couple slides here and kind of tell you where we're at in the development and the kind of the components we're going to have in it. Right now, if you want to go out and you want to buy a sports water bottle, you have hundreds of thousands of choices to choose from. But how do we narrow down our search to the one specific bottle that we're really looking for? We use filters, right? We use a system where we check off boxes that just filter that data set down from 30,000 to 5,000 to 500 to 5. Well, the same thing should apply to when we're looking for resources, right? How do I get the resource, the exact resource I need, when I need it, and for how long I need it? We use filters, okay? The other thing we do is, where are those resources at? Right now, everybody's using these apps that show them where they're at, where they want to go, how to get there, how much it's going to cost to get there, how long it's going to take to get there, and what's going to take me there. Why are we not incorporating this type of technology into our mutual aid as well, to be able to, when we say I need 50 Type 1 engines and I need them here within 2 hours and I need them for 7 days, those are all filters. And that's what we do right now, but we're doing it by paper and we're not visualizing that data. So it takes us much longer to actually find those resources. What if we had a tool that could go out, apply those filters, filter down the data set of resources, and then present those into a map? This is the way we traditionally look at resources in data sets. It's very linear. You have to read each line to actually figure out where folks are, what they are, and what resource they can provide for you. What if they were in a more geospatial platform? What if we saw resources in the way we do everything else now? Right now we can go, and most departments have hydrants listed on the map. They have where their stations are on the map. They have all these assets that they're using GIS for. What if we incorporated GIS into our mutual aid system to see where the resources are and where they need to go? This is what NMAS is working towards. Our partnership between Esri and WebEOC and the IAFC, that's what we're doing. Later this month at the Wildland Urban Interface Conference, we're going to be launching the National Mutual Aid System, and we'll be doing some demonstrations of the components that we're assembling into this product. Right now, we have 4 pilot states: California, Florida, Tennessee, and Utah, that are going to be our beta states that are going to work through and help us assemble this and start using this to figure out what are the things that are working and what do we need to change. We're not saying that it's going to be, the best thing, since sliced bread tomorrow, but what we're doing is we're trying to build a good system to be used for intrastate mutual aid. It can be used for cross-state borders if you need to in an emergency, but we understand that every day across the country, there's hundreds and hundreds of mutual aid responses throughout the states, and there is no good system for that. This is the nexus of what the IAFC is doing with the NMAS program.
And I will say that NMAS is not designed to replace or conflict with EMAC requests or any existing statewide mutual aid agreements. That it is designed to actually expedite those processes. Jeff, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, that's correct. So one of the things we're doing is we're building it to all these standards to be able to export to EMAC and then to also to the federal system ROS, so that we can export or ingest information from both of those systems.
Excellent.
So this is the dashboard for the NMAS project. This is actually what it looks like today. You can see we have some regular data, but we also have the geospatial mapping, the Esri map there in the middle, where we're using to project when you select a resource where it is in relationship to you or relationship to the incident that you're working. But then also is the ability to go in and add the resources into NMAS directly. And one of the things that we're working on is to be able to ingest a single resource or a task force, strike team, or mission ready package. This is very important because traditionally in mutual aid, you're not asking for one engine or one ladder. You're asking for it in packages to support a mission. And so we've recognized that working with our SMEs from our 4 states. They've given us a lot of great information about how they do mutual aid and how they would like to see this system set up. So you can see here just a quick shots of the data entry. It's an inventory management system where you can enter in your single resource, or you can build strike teams and task forces within it and then assign those resources to it with the task force builder.
So I'll describe some of the field applications that Jeff was discussing used in the hurricane response, and also will be leveraged as part of the National Mutual Aid System to help track, route, and identify the most appropriate resource for the response. So the first was Collector, and Collector is a very geospatially based field data collection application, very map centric. It enables you to use maps to gather data in the field and then synchronize the results with your enterprise GIS data. You can update data in the field in real time, and it tracks your location on the map, and you can see in real time what other people are adding to the map, what other data, what other features they're putting on the map related to your response. Increases accuracy, obviously, and the speed of feedback and transmission of data to anybody in your organization or anybody that's been given permission to view the map. But an incredible amount of accuracy, I mean, down to centimeters. And you'll see a new version of Collector come out probably in the summer that actually adds a lot of the features that we've been getting feedback from responders. So there's some issues about battery use. There's some issues about the number of clicks to say attach a photo. So we're trying to do that in three touches or less, right? Three clicks or less to add the photo. But you can download maps to your device, whether it's a Apple device or Android device or a tablet, or and download the maps and data to your device and operate without connectivity. So you can still do field collections. Obviously, you're not transmitting it back, but then as soon as you get that connection again, you're able to transmit the data back. And Survey 123, which is what Jeff was describing, was used mostly in Texas and Florida. And while this still has that geospatial component to it, it still puts you on a map. This is more of a database. This is more of a survey questionnaire-based application. So you can set up an application either in the AGOL environment in the web and just do some drag and drop, or you can actually set up the survey in Excel and import it into Survey123 and download it to the device. So you can use skip logic in the survey, simple yes/no questions, and drop-down fields to make it as easy as possible for those folks in the field. But that Survey123 can be used on a smartphone, laptop, or desktop, any Windows 10 environment, or just done simply in a browser. So anything with a browser, you can actually use Survey123. And it speeds the collection process with predefined questions that use logic and provide easy to fill answers. And like I said, drop downs, yes/no questions, and the skip logic. So an excellent one to look at is the FEMA damage assessment schema that you can do. And one of the first questions is what type of disaster. So you pick flooding, then the remaining questions only pertain to flooding. So you don't have to scroll through a bunch of things maybe related to an earthquake or something of that nature. So very effective way not only to find out where you're collecting the data, but to have a database or survey to collect as much data as possible, or only the data you need related to it. And one we haven't discussed much, but it was used in Florida, is Workforce for ArcGIS. And Workforce is not a dispatch system, but very similar. So Workforce allows you to track your personnel on the map. So if they're running Workforce, you see where they are. It allows you to assign work based on any layer you identify. So I'll give an example. In Jeff's deployment in Florida, they had some issues with nursing homes. So how do you assign work to individuals that are responding from an EMAC request or through an EMAC request that are coming from out of state, that don't know the community, they don't know the road network, and don't know exactly where they need to go or what the priority is? Well, what you do is you import the locations of your nursing homes in a layer into Workforce, and you can either do batch assignments by selecting multiple, or you can assign individual locations just out of that layer that allows you to send the work assignment to an individual worker. So anybody running the app on the phone, you could pick from the drop-down list and assign the work. It can then route them there. And if you have a Survey123 survey available, it'll open up Survey123 and you fill out the survey. When they arrive, they hit starting work, and it actually shows on that Workforce dashboard when they arrive and when they start the work. And then it shows when they complete the work, or when they clear up, or when they're back in service. And you may have noticed on the dashboard for the Texas response, you had work or a part of the dashboard, a widget in the dashboard that actually showed how many workers were available, how many were actively engaged, and how many were in service. And you can do a similar data feed out of Workforce into a dashboard. Not only see where they are on the map, but are they working or are they available to send to another response mission? So very simple to set up. Again, based on any layer you deem appropriate. Back in Henrico County, we did a beta where we actually just imported our target hazards into the map, and that's what we used to do potential commercial hazard assessment or business inspection type program at the company level. So you didn't have to filter through every address. It was only our highest level target hazards that were imported as a layer into the Workforce. So a very efficient and very effective way to manage work, whether it's, like I said, planning or administrative or an emergency response. So Jeff's going to talk about the MARP tool, Mutual Aid Resource Planning.
So a few years back, the National Information Sharing Consortium, working with DHS S&T, developed a planning tool for mutual aid called the MARP tool. And this was basically going through and looking at about 12 different scenarios, and then what resources you would need for each of those scenarios. And one of the things that we've been talking to them about is taking and operationalizing this plan. Imagine right now you have a disaster and you've got this big book of plans on the shelf, and what happens when the disaster happens? That big book sits there on the shelf. So what we're looking to do is to truly take and operationalize a plan that you spent time and energy doing. So the theory is that you would go through, and let's say for a tornado, let's say that you've got a 4, 3, 2, 1 scale in there. You'd say in a level 3, I'm going to need these resources. Well, when that event happens, you basically just launch the MARP tool, you select that type of disaster and that level, and it would dump your pre-assigned or predetermined resources that you need for mutual aid into the MARP tool, and so into the NMAS tool. And so what happens then is it takes all the things that you pre-identified and goes ahead and starts requesting those resources while you're trying to figure out what else you're going to need. So this is really exciting on our behalf, and we're really looking forward to working with the NIST folks and incorporation of the BARP tool into NMAS. So another thing we're doing is looking at partnerships in the scenario where we sent resources from Florida to Texas. Let's say that we're sending resources from Florida to Arkansas for a tornado. Along the way, those resources are going to have to stop for fuel. They're going to have to stop and resupply. They may need large parking lots somewhere to stage overnight, to rest up and things like that. One of the tools that we've worked with Esri on is doing this drive time analysis, but then also is looking at what resources are along that route. This one just shows a 2-mile buffer around the interstate or along the path that these resources would take. And what we came back with was a identification of, hey, there's a lot of Walmarts out there, or Sam's Clubs, or places like that. And so we started, and we actually had a meeting last week in Bentonville, Arkansas, with Walmart to talk about the possibility of the IAFC partnering with them to provide logistical support to mutual aid responses. And so this is very, very exciting. So now we're taking in, along with the actual mutual aid, we're looking at what resources they may need along that route to get there, or even once they get there. So if you think about taking it to the next step, let's think about if you have an order form for resources of things that you need to resupply, you could literally electronically fill out that order form while you're traveling. And when you pull up to the Walmart store number 125 in Valdosta, Georgia, or wherever, is they would have those resources ready for you to resupply you. You could refuel. All this would be within one system. You don't have to worry about a credit card. You don't have to worry about, coming up with cash or things like that. It's all part of the whole mutual aid system. So this is something that's still evolving a little bit, but we had really good talks last week with Esri and WebUSC and Walmart on this whole philosophy of the integration of the logistics piece into the NMAS project.
And so that capability would be amazing to not only be able to map where are my resources, who have I requested, they're being routed to my incident, I can keep track of them and provide for accountability, but then with multiple private partners, having that logistical supply chain in place that not only can the incident commander engage, but those responding from across state lines would have access to, just all in the app, all in the National Mutual Aid System. So excellent work there, Jeff, on the IFC side to engage those private partners to hopefully provide this kind of capability nationally. So that's all the comment or all the description of National Mutual Aid System we have right now. Jeff, I got a few questions if you have a moment, and I'll read them to you. Yep. And then of course, any questions we don't get to today, we will email you directly or respond to the comments in the comment box there. But so the first question is, HIFLD looks like a great tool, but if most departments don't participate and update their resources, how can we use it effectively? So Jeff, do you want to talk about how we're going to engage all 38,000 fire departments in the United States to enter data?
Yeah, so we've heard this several times that it's only good if we get the data and get the data updated. So we're going to have a multi-pronged approach to this, one through the IAFC membership and distribution systems. The second is to work with the state fire marshal's offices, because you think about every state has a fire marshal, every county or borough has a fire marshal, and then most jurisdictions have a fire marshal or a lead fire inspector or somebody that's kind of responsible throughout up to the state. So that's another way that we're going to engage to try and get fire departments to enter their information. From that also is in the National Mutual Aid piece is that if resources want to be able to deploy, they're going to have to go into the HIFLD system and put their information in so we can enter it into the NMAS system. So we have a multiple different ways, and then also if there's other ideas that folks have, please contact me. Let me know if you've got some ideas that will work in your jurisdiction or your state, because again, this is very important, and the system only works if we've got good up-to-date data in it.
Excellent. And I've got a question. The survey 123 survey template that you used for the wide area searches and the operations in Texas and Florida, could they email you about maybe getting a copy of that, or is there some way that you can distribute that? Yep. So everyone can see Jeff's email on the screen there. So please feel free to email him or me related to that specific survey. Now again, that survey that survey 123 application is available both in the App Store, Apple's App Store, and the Android Store as well. So you can download the application from that resource or from that source. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and after Hurricane Irma, we had an after action back with Florida with all of their response team leaders that participated, and FEMA was actually involved as well. And we went through and how they used it, what they liked, what they didn't like. And so that national platform, we have a working group right now at the IAFC, and then also FEMA has a working group that we're going to start looking at a national survey, if you will, to put out there where everybody's collecting the same data in the same way within the Esri tools, so that we can truly integrate all that information the same. The IAFC took the lead because we were kind of pressed into service from the state of Florida, but it's worked out really good because it gives us the ability, because we are the international fire chiefs, but we also represent, those entities, that the other entities like Esri, WebUSC, people like that we can bring together and apply the full force of their capabilities into these national disasters. And so, yeah, anybody that's interested in learning more, please reach out to me, and I'll be glad to show you what we did and what we're doing moving forward on this national platform, this national standard.
Okay, and I got a couple of comments about the federal ROS system, the rostering system used by some federal agencies. Can you describe or expand on the coordination with that system?
Yeah, so we have a couple of members of our SME panel that works extensively with ROS. And so we're working to capture all the information that ROS would need as well. And then also the IAFC is one of the partner agencies with FEMA on the National Mutual Aid Standards Requirements Gathering Team. And so we've been working for the last 2 years on that, along with ROS and EMAC and MABUS, to develop standards for mutual aid systems moving forward. And so what we're hoping is that from this, that everyone will build as they evolve their systems into this national standard of that information sharing. But one of the nice things about us, the way we're doing ours, is we already have the ROS data and data sets that we know exist today that we're able to incorporate. And then also the IROC development, which is the next evolution of ROS. We are in meetings with them as well.
Excellent. And Jeff, is there any plans to support this type of system outside the United States on an international basis?
So right now we're focusing mostly just within the continental U.S. and Hawaii, but we are talking to our Canadian division. They're very interested, and then also on a recent trip to Australia, doing some demonstrations. They're very interested in building something similar like this in that country. So.
Excellent. I'm sorry, sir. So, and you mentioned it briefly when discussing state level agencies, but have you considered partnering with local and state emergency management agencies who are already collecting a lot of this data?
Yes. So right now, our target audience is state emergency management and state fire chiefs associations to get the word out, show them en masse, work with them on developing their state's capability. But then also is we have the ability to go down to a county or even jurisdictional level and incorporate those resource gathering at that level as well. Another piece of it is the way the system is designed is that if a jurisdiction wanted to use the tool themselves for mutual aid, we have a way for them to engage and actually use it at a jurisdictional level. It doesn't have to be only at a state level.
Great. And is there any coordination or plans to use fire cares, to utilize fire cares to fill data gaps?
Right now, we haven't approached that yet. Right now, we're still building the database of what's needed just for the resource management tool. We are aware of fire cares, and we do work with the IFF very regularly on some of their data collection stuff, as well as NFPA. We're working with them and the U.S. Fire Administrator. So we actually have a meeting scheduled at the IFC sometime in April, I believe, with all those data collecting agencies to look at standardization of data sets and standardization of the way we're collecting that data. So.
Excellent. Okay, and we have a question about under what authority are resources deploying nationally? So I'll kind of go back to that. We're not in conflict or not, in lieu of an EMAC or statewide mutual aid request. We're still following those policies and procedures, but can you expand on that, Jeff?
Yeah, so just like I said, this is basically set up for an intrastate or inside of state mutual aid systems. However, we have been approached by several jurisdictions that border large, cities that border other states that may need that rapid, quick deployment of resources across that state line. Doesn't circumvent EMAC in any ways, but again, this is the boom to 24-hour capability, where EMAC is more of a 24-hour and beyond capability to stand up and start being utilized. So again, our focus is intrastate mutual aid right now, because there is no system out there other than mutual aid net, and this is just an evolution and an update of that mutual aid net system.
So interesting question. Was there any pushback from first responders having to use Survey 123? I'm assuming during the hurricane response in Texas and Florida. What was the participation rate of responders using the app?
So great question. So at first we had several people saying that, well, I don't have time to do that, I'm too busy. And then once they started getting out and doing it, they started using it more and more, and they actually started figuring out that, I go out here and I can put in a couple quick questions or answer a couple quick questions and use the geolocation tool within Survey 123. When I get back in, my report writing is going to be much, much easier because I'm able to remember stuff much better. Again, during that scenario of hurricanes, it was raining, it was windy, they ran a lot of water. Pen and paper doesn't work out there. And so being a responder for, almost 40 years now, I've been in a lot of the situations that I'd much rather had a capability to enter that data in automatically, electronically, rather than trying to capture it by pen and paper, make sure I get that back 10 hours, 12 hours later, and be able to translate that data effectively to those people who need that information to make decisions.
Excellent. Is there any collaboration with the USFA, their catastrophic mutual aid planning efforts, and the IRIS system?
With USFA, yes, we are. Chief Bryant we've been working with him and his staff, and we actually had a call a few weeks ago now with the folks doing their catastrophic planning, and we're setting up meetings right now to meet with them about how they're doing plannings for large-scale disasters in the country, and then that mutual aid. But that's more of a theory. It's not about actually moving anybody. It's about how do we plan for those types of things. But yeah, we're looking at that planning just like the MARC tool. And again, if we start looking at it, is all disasters starting to end locally. And so our focus is to work with state and local emergency management and fire chiefs to help them identify what their resource needs will be, but also how do they translate that in a time of crisis very quickly and effectively.
Excellent. How will emergency management data and an enterprise geodatabase integrate with WebEOC? So this is actually built in WebEOC, right? With obviously some Esri capabilities supporting it as part of the basic infrastructure. So there should be some pretty simple integration with standing WebEOC application, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And that was one of the reasons we chose WebEOC, is because they are in, I think it's 48 of the 50 states right now. And so that data already, a lot of it resides there, but also needs to be pushed there whenever there is an event. And so this tool will push out to a WebEOC board that can be ingested, and then also it can also ingest information from the WebEOC systems that a state might have. We're very sensitive to the ability to transfer and move data. And from the very beginning, everything has been about sharing data real time in a very plain, simple way to do it. And then also the same thing with the mapping and going with Esri ArcGIS Online, and then also some portal tools. It allows us very quickly to share those maps and share that data in the maps very easily across organizations.
Excellent. And last question, and I'll take a piece of it, but are you working with FirstNet on the application security, scale, and interoperability issues? I'm sorry. Esri is heavily engaged, particularly with our field applications that'll be a part of NMAS, a part of the National Mutual Aid System. So certainly on that end, we're working directly with FirstNet on some of these issues. And Jeff, you want to speak to the overall NMAS project and how we've started working with FirstNet or engaging FirstNet?
Yeah, we're very engaged with them both through Esri and with WebVOC, and then the IAFCs initiatives we have ourselves. FirstNet, we've had several meetings with them. Part of the thing that we're working on right now is some of those data standards that FirstNet is developing, but also is looking at how we translate that data to the first responders in the field when they don't have connectivity by Wi-Fi or by cell. Is there other ways that we could be connecting, such as sat phones or things like that, to be able to get this data back real time for the decision makers?
Excellent. So that was our final question for the National Mutual Aid System webinar today. Certainly you have our contact information on the screen there, and please, if you think of any other questions or have any other suggestions or comments, feel free to email Jeff or me. I'm personally very excited to be involved with Chief Dulin and the chiefs and WebEOC Informatics to get this project moving forward, which it has already begun. And Jeff, any closing comments before we go off the air here?
No, thanks for everybody participating today, and I look forward to your questions.
Yep, thanks so much, Jeff. Have a good day.